What's up, YouTube? Right now, I'm here with a very special guest. We might be living in a global pandemic, but today I have a national treasure. Today we have the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. How are you?
I'm very good, Malcolm. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview. I'm very surprised you responded so quickly, too.
Hey, look, I always try to engage the wrestling media. You know, it's one of the big things that's been a staple of the NWA brand since we launched. And you know, this isn't the first time we've spoken. The last time was in person. It was at a show in Virginia. But you know, obviously times have changed. But I'm always happy to give some time to people trying to help spread the word of the NWA.
Of course. Well, thank you very much. Well, speaking about that, how's the day in the life of the national treasure during a global pandemic? I mean, I'm sure it can't be the same that it was before when everything was, you know, open and whatnot.
Sure. I mean, less traveling, but the workload is the same. It's just a different kind of work. A lot more of this, a lot more stuff virtually. You know, a lot of stuff on Zoom, Skype. You know, different things like that. A lot of stuff we're shooting, you know, at home or you know, on location somewhere in a sort of safe environment. And obviously for us, you know, things are a little different because we didn't have to put out content right away. We had the freedom to sort of figure out how we wanted to approach this. And obviously, while everybody was trying to wrap their heads around what this pandemic was going to look like and how long it was going to be around and what those sort of ramifications were going to be, you know, we were able to sort of take a bit of time. But now obviously we kind of know that there's a new normal, at least for the foreseeable future. So we started pivoting, and I'm very excited that we're going to get back in the ring. We're going to start doing some shows, you know, on a more limited basis. But it's also been, I think, in a lot of ways, I think it's been a good, for me personally, it's been really good because I've learned a lot. I've expanded on a lot of skills, you know, like editing and directing and producing, and you know, and also just from the company standpoint, we've figured out a lot of things that needed to be restructured, and just, you know, just how to sort of pivot in a time like this, because right now, you know, really survival is success, you know, at this point. So I mean, we've figured things out. We've put more of an emphasis on our Patreon subscriptions and sort of moving towards creating a lot more original content for our sort of diehard fans and kind of focusing on that. And then, you know, I've taken on a bit more of an active role as far as sort of production and stuff goes, because, you know, we've built a fan base and we've built a brand here that you know, people are really into. So we just had to figure out the best way to sort of take advantage of that, and now we're pressing forward.
So you mentioned that you were like getting into like editing and learning new tasks and whatnot. Is there something that you've learned during quarantine that you never thought you had the time to learn before, like, I don't know, like cooking or knitting or something like really outlandish?
No, not well, you know, I don't think knitting's ever going to be something that's on my to-do list, but I'm already a pretty good cook. You know, just another reason why I'm such a hell of a catch. Just ask the missus. But no, but the main thing really has been having a chance to really sit down and learn how to edit and work with that stuff, you know, as a director, because obviously I've been quite hands-on in all the content creation, but I wasn't the one physically, you know, pushing the buttons and clicking the mouse. You know, I would have input, and I would have a lot of things in my mind's eye that I would say, hey, you know, what if it went to this and this? But now I've actually had the time to, you know, sit down and invest in some equipment and really sort of get to grips with it. And it's been very rewarding. And I think that, again, sort of, I think it's a twofold thing. I think I've personally sort of developed a lot of skills that I think I can expand on and sort of diversify myself. But also I think that it's helping the NWA as well, because the more of us who can contribute in those ways, you know, the faster the company's able to adapt and grow.
Of course. So do you think like after pro wrestling, it's like editing and being like a backstage producer something you actually look forward to doing, or it's like when you're done wrestling, you're done in the wrestling business as a whole?
I can't imagine that I would be done in the business as a whole. You know, I'd always like to contribute in some way. But yeah, I mean, I always try to diversify.
Okay.
You know, just not just in my portfolio, but in just my approach to, you know, my career. Because look, when you've been around and you've been in the business as long as I have, and you've had enough ups and downs and peaks and valleys, you know, and expectations and sort of, you know, false promises and disappointments, you start to realize that putting all your eggs in one basket can be a little unhealthy. And it's sort of I've always felt like that mentality is what wrestling promoters and what sort of upper management in the big wrestling companies, they kind of prey on that. Like they kind of want you to only have this. They want you to be kind of beholden to them because, oh, you need this bad. And, you know, they sort of use that against the boys. And I think the more you can diversify, the less you sort of, you know, the less you sort of need any one thing, the more freedom you can have to hold yourself to a higher standard and be willing to say no and be willing to walk away from something. And that's, you know, that's real freedom. You know, the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. So I'm working on like, you know, I've got maybe 2 or 3, you know, so now I've got to start working on 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Only 4 more to go, and you'll be on your way. Nothing
Well,
else.
yeah, and those ones have to generate as much revenue as the other ones. So easier said than done.
I mean, you said you can cook, start a restaurant. It could work out for you.
Oh yeah, right, because everyone knows that's a surefire success story, you know, restaurants. So yeah.
But talking about the NWA, recently NWA announced that they actually have a partnership with the United Wrestling Network and Thunder Studios to produce a weekly pay-per-view that starts September 15th. So for a lot of wrestling fans that maybe don't understand exactly what that means, what can we expect coming out of this partnership?
Okay, so United Wrestling Network encompasses Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Arizona. It's, you know, operated by David Marquez, who obviously has an established relationship with the NWA. And Thunder Studios is a world-class facility, you know, production facility in Long Beach, California. And basically on-demand pay-per-view, you know, the traditional cable pay-per-view company, as well as Fight TV, basically presented an opportunity for a weekly time slot where UWN and any other entities that wanted to take part could participate. And, you know, it would be a sort of a much lower price point than a typical pay-per-view. And, you know, it's an opportunity for us to be able to create content, you know, with high production value at a sort of lower cost. And, you know, we understand. Here's the one thing we didn't want to do is we didn't want to go back to GPB Studios in Atlanta where we do Powerrr and do it without an audience, because the audience is such an important part of that show.
Oh yeah, it really is.
That it just wouldn't be the same, and we didn't want to tarnish that, you know, the magic of that show with our audience. And also just from an economic standpoint, we are not a company with a multi-million-dollar budget, and we also don't have an obligation to provide weekly content to a television network. So we were able to sort of sit back, but obviously we didn't want to just sit out completely. So this is an opportunity for us to start to get back in the game, but in a limited fashion. I think what you'll see over time is you'll see certain weeks, you know, certain shows, you know, because that time slot is there for anyone. That time slot is there every Tuesday. But obviously we don't expect anyone to pay, you know, to watch a pay-per-view every single week. So it will probably be a case of, you know, every few weeks, every however many weeks, you know, one of those shows will be one that will kind of build more towards. And I think you'll see more of a sort of UFC type of approach, where there'll be sort of almost kind of A level kind of shows, and then there'll be sort of, you know, B and C kind of level shows. And so, you know, obviously it's the NWA are taking part in this, but it's a UWN project. So it's really, you know, we're involved heavily in the early going, and then as we start to sort of settle in, you know, we'll start to schedule out kind of what big matches we want to put on, and, you know, when, and we'll start building towards it. So you'll see, I think, more of a kind of condensed version of the 10 pounds of gold model, where we'll be focusing on, you know, certain big, you know, key matchups and kind of building towards them with more sort of artistic kind of content. And then kind of saying, okay, that's happening on this pay-per-view on this Tuesday, you know, and then other pay-per-views happening, or, you know, got other stuff going on. So it's kind of like, it's and at the same time, whenever we're at Thunder Studios, we'll be able to shoot a bunch of ancillary content that will, you know, exclusive content that will go on our YouTube and our Patreon pages.
Oh, that's great. That sounds pretty good for any NWA fan out there. But what does that mean for the future of Powerrr? Because I know, like, right now with the global pandemic, and there's no crowds right now, that obviously going back and shooting there wouldn't be the best move. But does that mean that you would no longer be on YouTube, or is this still like we're on Fight and also we are still on YouTube as well?
We'll still be creating original content for YouTube, 100%. It's just, it's not going to be Powerrr, and it's not going to be as frequent. You know, that's just the reality of the limitations that we're in. I can't, you know, obviously as of now, you know, I'm just speaking for what I know at this point in time. I don't think that you'll see Powerrr until we can safely have an audience, you know, at least 50% capacity, because that building, you know, we created real magic in there, you know, and it's ironic now that one of the things that made that show unique was the fact that it was kind of small and intimate, but the atmosphere was so strong because of it. It was you know, we took advantage of it. We weren't trying to sort of overplay it and say, oh, we're in an arena, you know, like we said, no, it's a television studio, like, and that's the magic of it, is it's like the people are right there, and, you know, the wrestlers interact with the people, happening organically, and you know that it's organic, you know it's not scripted, you know it's not predetermined and planned. Like, if someone's in the fourth row and they say something to me and I turn to them and be like, what do you mean by that? You know, they know that there's no way that was planned and it was orchestrated. So, you know, there was a real magic to that. And so, you know, we're preserving that. So, but look, you know, people, this isn't the first time that we've been faced with, you know, puzzled questions from fans like, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, I mean, we did this when we did the 10 pounds of gold series. People were kind of like, where is this going? What's it? But then when we would do a pay-per-view, suddenly everyone would buy it, you know, and we would get, you know, a significant amount of interest. I mean, Fight, you know, obviously now it's now been announced that I'm working with Fight, you know, in an individual capacity as well. But, you know, I have, you know, Fight, one of the reasons that we have such a strong relationship with Fight is because we perform really well for them. Like our pay-per-views, you know, do very strong numbers. And so when this stuff was announced, you know, Fight were the ones kind of saying like, hey, NWA, are you doing something? Because, you know, cash registers are ring-a-dinging, you know what I mean? So it's like, we know the value that we have in the market. So we just want to make sure that we preserve that, and you know, but at the same time, we know that we have our loyal fans who have stuck with us, particularly the Patreon members who, you know, we value and cherish. So the other part of that equation is making sure that we can, you know, start pumping out more original content for them and exclusive content for them so that they're getting their money's worth.
Well, until that partnership then starts, like on the Fight Network, actually you have a title match coming up very soon. is going to be in Hurst, Texas at the Independent Wrestling Expo against Jeff Cobb and an opponent to be announced after a Battle Royal. Who do you think will be winning that Battle Royal, and how's it getting into the ring for the first time in a while? Because I'm assuming this is your first time hopping back in there, and it's for the title too.
Yeah, it's well, look, it's not it's not ideal. You know, triple threat matches are tough, you know, at the best of times because obviously the champion doesn't have to be pinned.
That's true.
And on top of that, you know, the layoff. I mean, that's a real thing. The ring rust. I mean, I'll be heading to Clarksville to go and roll around in the ring with Tom Latmer and some of the guys at Tried and True and stuff to sort of work off some of that rust. But you know, Jeff Cobb's no joke, man. Like it's right back into the fire. But you know, I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious about how it's going to feel, and yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's sort of crept up on me because it's I haven't really, you know, you get out of sync. You know, you get sort of just little things like, oh man, I hope I don't forget like my knee pads or, you know, something, you know, because you become such a robot with those sort of things. You have like your whole sort of routine of your road, you know, most wrestlers have like a road routine. It's like, okay, my bag stays there and like this goes in and this goes in and this, you know, and in order. And it's like, you know, then it's like, for me, I always have like my gear bag always has the following stuff in it. And then like my road bag always has the following stuff, you know, laptop, headphones, this, that, you know, chargers, whatnot. And it's going to be kind of weird because it's going to be sort of almost establishing that all over again. But, and then adding to that, you know, trying to avoid people and, you know, wearing a mask and sanitizing and, you know, social distancing and all those fun things. So it's going to be interesting to say the least.
So if you could pick someone to be in that triple threat though, against you and Jeff Cobb, who would you want to be that third opponent?
I haven't really thought about it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, because in my mind, it's like, there's no point preparing for, you know, it's a battle royal.
That's
you know,
true.
it's like, you know, it's very hard to predict. You know, and look, I'm not that familiar with a lot of the participants anyway. So for me, it's more of a case of, you know, I know how to prepare for Jeff. And then the rest will, you know, we're all going to be in the same boat, you know, except for the person winning whoever wins the battle royal. You know, they'll be, because they can, you know, they should be preparing for me and Jeff, but Jeff and I can only be preparing for each other at this point.
I mean, that's very true. I mean, also he'll be tired when he gets in the ring anyway. So if anything, it just gets
right. So you know, look, triple threats are not, you know, not something that I tend to want to go for a lot. But on this occasion, I realized that it's been a while since I've defended the title, so you know, so I should put myself in a situation where, you know, where I'm at a significant disadvantage.
So how have you been able to like stay in shape during quarantine so far? Because I know that a lot of states, at least, you know, a lot of gyms aren't around and whatnot. So do you have a home gym, or are you just outside running and just making sure you
well
right, of course?
No, I mean, well, the gyms here in Tennessee have reopened quite a while back, but yeah, there was a period where, you know, obviously everything was shut down. But I have, yeah, we've amassed a pretty significant home gym setup at this point, because when, you know, we had it all basically when our son was a baby. You know, it wasn't as easy to sort of, you know, jump in the car and take him to the gym and stick him in the daycare and stuff. You know, sometimes, look, with kids, it's like, especially when they're sort of terrible twos and, you know, a toddler and stuff, it's like, you know, you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going to come next. It's like, so, you know, there are certain days where you just know there's no way we're getting out of this house, you know. So, and it's like with Mickey being on the road at that point, you know, a lot of the time, often sort of 4 days a week, you had to have a good home gym. So, you know, so we've got like Olympic bar and plates. We've got, you know, dumbbells, kettlebells, Smith machine, heavy bag, you know, pull-ups, dips, you know, we've got a pretty sweet setup. So it's so it wasn't, you know, truthfully, I actually kind of enjoyed it because it forced me to sort of, rely on good old fashioned iron and gravity, man, all free weights.
Is there a certain thing in the gym you like to do more than others, like, bench press your thing or leg press or whatnot?
I mean, I have body parts that that I have more, that I enjoy training more, that require less, less motivation. Probably for me, it's probably chest and back. Probably the two that I have require the least amount of motivation. But my chest has always responded really well to training, so it's kind of like I know that even if I'm feeling terrible, if I'm like jet lagged or I'm just tired and exhausted or in a bad mood or had a long day or whatever, I still know that I can go in the gym and in like 40 minutes I can get a good chest workout. I can get a good chest pump and call it stimulation. Can't do that with legs. Like you kind of need to be in the zone. You need to have you need the energy. You need to be kind of ready. And yeah, so I mean, it's leg day for me today. So once we get off here, that's where I'm going.
How's the bench press going? Like, what's your max? You're a big dude. I'm assuming you can put on some weight on that barbell.
Yeah, bench. I mean, it's okay, but it's never been my best thing for by any stretch. I guess I'm not very good. What, like 3 plates on either? So what's that, like 275?
315.
315. So like that, that's kind of my. I don't normally go much more than that unless I'm feeling froggy, with some elbow straps and a spot, and I just want to sort of go for it and get like 1 or 2. But yeah, and then like again, I really just I train mostly high intensity style, so it's kind of like a couple of sort of decent sets and then one all out to like total failure. So a lot of the time, bench doesn't lend itself as well to that because unless you've got a spot. So like I'll kind of save those days for when I'm training with Tom or with Crimson, or like if my buddy Sam's in town or something, like we that's when we'll sort of get crazy with that sort of stuff.
Is there a certain song you need to listen to before you get down on the bench press? I know some people need like that extra motivation.
Oh, music. I hate training without music.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't have a particular song. I mean, I have like different playlists. So depending on what kind of mood I'm in, like a lot of the time I listen to hip hop when I'm training because it's kind of like. That's I did not think you were gonna say. I know people always find that. I love hip hop, man. It's funny. Like I think people always assume that I'm gonna be into like rock and heavy metal. No, look, I have a very eclectic music taste though. But it's like a lot of the time I find like hip hop because it's got that sort of, it's got that cadence and it's got that kind of controlled aggression to it. It's not like and it brings out it brings out like a little bit of swagger, you know what I mean? And it's like you need a little bit of that swagger in the gym to be like, all right, go to work, like one more set.
Well, I mean, that just gave me a better question. Who's your favorite rapper? Because like I'm very interested now. Like, who's the top guy? I was not expecting this today.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, probably I sort of prefer, I guess, well, I guess I know for sure that nowadays I think kids would be like, oh, because it's old school, it's like, it's mostly old school hip hop. So it's like,
I love old school hip hop. No,
yeah, like big, like Biggie, Tupac, like, like old NWA and but I mean I listen to I listen to like 2 Milli and all kinds of stuff, but like yeah, I've got like a hip hop playlist where I have a specific gym hip hop playlist.
Okay, right.
So it's kind of like and and there's even like some like Swizz beats and stuff on there and all kinds of stuff. It's like honestly I hear something and I Shazam it or I like pull it up and I just download, put it in my playlist there and then.
Man, I hate to shift away from it because I have a million more questions about that. That was by far the coolest thing I've heard today. But also, I have to congratulate you. There's a new Aldis toy coming out very soon.
Yes.
Congratulations. How's it feeling to have another figure after yourself? I mean, I know there's a Magnus one. I have one in my house, but now there's I
have one in my house too. It's actually sitting here on my bookshelf.
Oh, of course. I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, it's
Yeah, no, this one's really cool. I'm very excited about this one because the company that are doing it, the company called Chella Toys, they're based in the UK and they're a brand new company. Like this is literally this is their first product.
Oh, it's you.
And yeah, and you know, they took a leap and they approached me and basically said, we'd love to do a toy. You know, and it was and explained sort of what they were going for, that it's going to be a kind of retro, like kind of like the old Hasbro WWF figures. And
I noticed that because it's a lot smaller than like the typical ones they produce now.
yeah, and they did that deliberately, you know, knowing that, and they thought that me and the NWA sort of, you know, lent itself well to that style, and that, you know, that it would appeal to the, you know, the similar audiences and stuff like that. So there's no doubt that obviously the main focus, you know, as far as sort of audience is going to be more of a collector's kind of audience. But I think it's a fun enough kind of toy that you know, if kids can see it and get interested in it, and we do have a surprisingly good amount of kids that watch the NWA. Like we get approached a lot by, and a lot of the time it's kids of the folks already watching, but then they become super into it. So, I mean, the sales so far have been very good. Pre-orders have been very good. It's a limited run. They're only doing 2,000.
I know. I tried to pre-order one and it was sold out. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, the US. Yeah, I think they're gonna have to rejig those US numbers, because I think they had a certain amount allocated for like the UK and Europe and a certain amount allocated for North America. And the North American one's just like.
Oh yeah, they went very quickly. I tried to get on the website. I was like, wow, this was just a good waste of time because I couldn't even get one. But
there'll be more coming. Don't worry.
Awesome. So does that mean that we're going to see a possible NWA deal, or is this just a Nick Aldis exclusive?
This one is an exclusive deal with me, but we are working on a wider NWA licensing agreement. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
A lot of it will depend on the success of this figure. So I mean, I think I'm confident to say at this point that it's doing well. So I think that we should be anticipating hopefully an NWA line next.
Oh, I believe it's doing well. If it's sold out, is doing the right thing. But do you have a room in like your house that's just nothing but like memorabilia and toys of like Nick Aldis and Mickey James or Magnus?
No, actually, it's funny. I was actually talking about this on an interview I did yesterday, where I said I don't have a look at me room. We just, I mean, I have a few. I get those the picture tile things that you can get, like the I really like those, and we have various ones sort of scattered all over the house, and but I have a bunch of NWA ones in my office.
Okay.
Just as a sort of nice little, because that's my work area. But it's, you know, like we keep a lot of stuff, and I dare say that eventually, you know, as and when, you know, we buy a house and, you know, somewhere, you know, a bigger place, or get somewhere that kind of ends up being our forever home.
Okay.
I dare say that would be something that may have, you know, for me, it's like, I wouldn't even know what to put in there, you know, like other than.
What do you mean you don't know what to put in there? You're the world champion. Of course,
I understand.
There's a lot you could put in there.
I understand that, but I mean, like, as far as, you know, where does it end, right? Do you do like just belts and like figures, or do you do like posters, or like that, you know, because it's kind of hard to, and I wouldn't want it to be obnoxious, that's for sure. So I think if I would do it, it would be sort of understated. I think we would have to set some sort of parameters with each other, like, okay, we're allowed 10 items each, you know, or something, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, I guess to wrap this all up, earlier you said you're a good cook, but you didn't say what you're really good at cooking. So we could know. I think the world needs to know what Nick Aldis can do in the kitchen.
I'm not gonna lie, Malcolm. I could throw it down.
Okay, what does that mean though? Like, are we talking like Master Chef levels? Are we talking like McDonald's drive-through?
Well, you literally just described two the complete ends of the spectrum.
I know. Where do you lie?
Well, yes, thank you. And that description was not really necessary. But no, I mean, well, here's an example. I just made some perfectly seared Brussels sprouts with like garlic and bacon, a couple of days ago. Yeah, well, and that's the thing, you know, because that's the thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've learned to cook. I mean, I grew up in a household where my mum's an amazing cook, and we always ate, you know, we always had, we were very sort of dinner time at the table family, and everything was always sort of whole food and real food. But obviously, you know, when you're into like bodybuilding and training, it's like you kind of, you know, it's 50-50 diet and exercise.
That's true.
So like, unless you're going to just be miserable and just like chow down on like boring chicken and brown rice and, you know, whatever all day long every day and kind of live like that, you kind of need to start figuring out some combinations. You know, that's where stuff like the sort of, you know, the pan-seared Brussels sprouts and stuff comes in, because it's like you can still enjoy your food. Like I find that, you know, I do, you know, I do custom made, you know, diet and training plans with people on my website, NWAUnited.com. And that's always, I always find that that's always like the major difference maker with most of my people I work with, is like when I'll go, well, if you're having this for breakfast, why don't you have like this with this and this, you know? And then they'll email me and go, oh my God, like that tastes so good. And it's like, you know, and it's so much better. And you know, like, cause I think people just sort of get, people develop this mindset that if it tastes good, it can't be good, you know, and like you've got to pick one or the other, and it's not the case. You just have to sort of understand the difference.
Well, I mean, it says it right there. Guys, that was the interview with the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. If they don't happen to know who you are, where can they find you?
Twitter at Real Nick Aldis, Instagram at Nick Aldis. I'm verified on both. Look for the blue check, yeah, and everything you'll need to know will be found on either of those. And then for the NWA, it's very simple. On all the different platforms, it's at NWA. And if you haven't checked out the NWA yet, if you are one of those sad, unfortunate folks who have not experienced yet the magic of the new Aldis era NWA, go to youtube.com/NWA and you can binge watch every episode of NWA Power, every episode of 10 Pounds of Gold, even full pay-per-views, you know, Aldis versus Cody, you know, you can check it all out there at youtube.com/NWA.
Oh, there you go, guys. Make sure to go check out the NWA. And also, if you have a chance, maybe if you have one of the Nick Aldis figures, don't be afraid to send it over to me. I would appreciate it. But thank you guys for watching the video. If you really enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, share, always subscribe, and we outie.
We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a MuscleManMalcolm. We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a MuscleManMalcolm. When it just like 1, 2, 3. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze.